Hi, everyone, and welcome to Real Estate with Gwen Price. And this is our monthly market update with Trina Tallon with Dominion Lending and with my broker, Lana Watier, Keystone Real Estate. Hi, ladies. Good morning.
Good morning,
ladies.
Are you surviving this heat? It's been pretty brutal, eh? But I'd rather this than winter.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain.
It's going to come soon enough as it is. So how are you finding things? I mean, the market's been crazy. It's still kind of repeat the same thing month after month lately, but that's a good thing. Good thing for the sellers anyway. It's a seller's market.
It's definitely a seller's market. It definitely is good for sellers. Primarily if you're a seller that's getting out of the game and you're cashing out and you're, going to find an apartment or whatever, you're going to retire in Costa Rica or something, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's difficult for buyers because there's so many competitions on so many properties.
Yeah.
I've been in competitions, you got 7 offers, 12 offers, 15 offers on places, and they're going 20, 30, 40, $50,000 over asking. And that's what's brutal. So hard in this market when you have first-time home buyers. And I think what a lot of people are forgetting is a lot of these places still have to appraise for that amount of money. Yes. Trina, like they're, the bank is only going to lend on so much. And if you do a cash offer and your property is 20,000 short on appraisal, you got to come up with that money. Those things are issues that are coming up after the fact. I'm not a huge fan of this market.
No, I really am not either. I mean, and if you've got a house to sell, to try to buy something conditional on the sale of your home is impossible unless it's an unusual property you're looking for and nobody else wants. But again, just looking at the stats, and part of the problem is our listings are still consistently down every month, and they're down about 20% from last year. The sales were about equal this month. And the average sale price is up 11% since the end of the year. And, so that keeps happening month after month. And one of the price ranges that's the hottest is 250 to 300. That's where the highest number of sales were in that price range. So anything either side, like the average sale price is about 327. So anything on either side of that, that's what's hot. So how have you been finding things,
That's where
Trina?
most first-time home buyers are at, right?
Yeah,
they're in that range. So it's good for some. It's not good for all, but it's a market we got to deal with. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I've been finding that a lot of people don't realize what they need as far as documentation to have their ducks in a row for pre-approval. So I've encountered quite often people going to write offers and they're going way over, and then an appraisal gets required and I don't have any documents from them. I haven't given them a pre-approval, and then they're running.
That's crazy. So, I keep drilling it into all of my clients. You've got to have that already in place before you're really looking, but not everybody listens to us.
No, not at all. And the other thing too is that I've been finding that people have been waiving their financing before the appraisals are looked at by lenders, which is really tricky because an appraisal is part of your financing condition. And before waiving it, it's not just that the appraisal gets done and the report gets written. The lender has to actually approve the appraisal and make sure that they are comfortable with it's not just the value, but anything else that might be going on inside of the house, right?
Yeah, because it's not all about the client. It's also part of the equation is the house. Does the value make sense? The bank looks like risk factors, right? If it's an oddball house or there's something wrong with it, they're not going to be happy, and it's all about risk. And if the client loses a house somewhere down the road, what has the bank got in their hands? Is it a marketable house? But people think it's because they're pre-approved, that's the end of the story, but it's not.
No,
correct.
Not even close.
No, and it's I'm still getting, if the client's pristine and the house is pristine, 5 days for financing is okay. But as soon as you start running into these places where people are going $10, $20, $30,000 over asking, and there's anything interesting about the client's income or credit or anything like that, then be prepared that an appraisal might be asked for on the property. And if you're going in without a financing condition, make sure that the client has that extra $20,000 that they've got in the bank to cover that over purchase price, over the asking price amount, because that's what's going to happen if you go in without conditions and you're going in way over asking price. You need to make sure you have that buffer to be able to take care of that additional money in case an appraisal is called on and an appraisal comes in at the actual asking price. So I've seen that a couple times now.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, some of it, right? Yeah, I mean, when you start going 50 and 60,000 over, like, and then when I hear unconditional offers, I just kind of cringe a bit. You know, I mean, sometimes it works so beautifully, but sometimes it doesn't, and people are making decisions. The seller's making a decision on their life based on, you know, the offer they just received, and they're all thrilled, of course, that they've received lots over asking, but it isn't always the end of the story.
Well, and even though I've seen offers and I've been involved in offers too, where it's not always about the price on the offer. It's a lot of it is about the terms of the offer. And I've had competitions on my listings where the seller takes in one instance, the seller took the lowest amount of money. There were offers that were several $1,000s, you know, higher because of the terms of the offer. It's not always about the price. It's not just about the selling price. It's about the conditions in the offer and the closing date and things like that. People don't realize you can't just throw money at something and it's an automatic win, because there are a lot of different factors involved, right? So,
well, sometimes even it can be an emotional thing for the seller, right? And an unknown quantity is how they feel about a buyer. And it does sometimes make a difference to have a letter go with an offer, or that somehow they met the buyer. And we don't always encourage that, because that can be a real fiasco. But sometimes they just like to know, and they've, lived in a house for 40, 50 years, but maybe it's going to a nice young family who's going to treat it with respect, and not somebody who's going to be flipping the property and trying to make money on it. So there's things that you're right. It's not.
Yeah, the story of the buyer matters as well. And that's a kind of hard for a buyer's agent too in this kind of market, to represent your buyer. Like you say, Gwen, you have to have a letter or something. Usually, you know, you get to, as a buyer's agent, you get to sit at the table with the seller and say, you know, this is my buyer and this is their story, and we don't get that. And I've had that happen as well, where the story from the buyer was the determining factor in the seller accepting their offer regardless of price. So yeah, you're right. It is as much as we don't like it to be, these sales are emotional for a lot of people. There's a lot of emotional value tied up, and unfortunately that doesn't necessarily equate to dollar value, but it does carry some weight when you're doing negotiations, for sure.
Yeah, actually this year
with multiple offer situations, it's hard to compete when you don't get to express your buyer's actual story to the sellers.
Well, and in one case this year, the buyer actually wrote a nice letter and attached a photo, and that had an impact, I can tell you, on the seller, because it was a family home that was being sold, and just to see this bright young couple expecting their first child. That's what I mean. How do you put a dollar amount on that? It's an emotion, it's a feeling, right? That's one reason I still like residential real estate as opposed to commercial, because there is an emotional factor that you can't quantify. Everybody with their spreadsheets can't put that emotion in a box somewhere, right? So, but, you know, you like that. You like knowing that that's an important thing for some families. For some people it isn't. It's all about the money. They don't care who gets their house. It's gone, goodbye. But for some it does matter. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't matter to the bank though.
No, the bank doesn't care.
The bank doesn't care.
All. They
are
zero
emotion involved.
The banks are the ones with the spreadsheets, right? Everything's got to go into a box and check off. And like, has there been anything crazy, interesting happening, Trina, with any more changes in the banking, or what are interest rates? Say, they're still stable, right?
Rates are really good, but I find every time this year rates are really good, and then it fluctuates based on what's going on with the world. One interesting thing that's happening every once in a while is with income documentation, that a letter may say that a client earns $60,000 a year, but if their prior T4s are not matching that because of COVID and they were off for a couple of months, they have to take a look at what they're actually going to make this year instead of what the letter of employment says. So I do have a document that is a checklist of all the documents that are, or most of the documents that are required for pre-approval, or for when you have an offer in to get your everything approved. So if anybody wants that, you can email me at trina@ndlc.ca and I'll send it over.
Yeah, I would like that document.
That's great information to have, because then, it's a preemptive situation, right? When you're first meeting your buyer, this is what your mortgage broker is going to ask for. This is what they should be asking for. If they're not asking for this, then maybe you're not getting the pre-approval or the pre-qualification that you're expecting. That's great information to have, for sure.
For sure. I can get that out. Just to get, I have a saying, I don't know if I came from Scouts or Girl Guides or what, but always be prepared.
That's true. I mean, and it's, that's a big factor, and we keep saying it, but it's amazing how many people don't listen to it. The banks now want every piece of paper, whatever they need, you got to supply it, right? It's not like, oh, I make 100,000. Okay, now prove it, right? Where's your documents?
The banks don't want to be in the home ownership business. They don't want to own homes. They just want to lend on them. They don't want to have to take that home back and go through that whole process, because that's an ordeal. They just want to make sure that the people they're giving their money to can pay them back.
Well, and COVID has affected things this year, and for sure, the whole thing about qualifications, and some people are still on COVID money or whatever you want to call it, and that's a factor. It's not a slam dunk to be qualified to be pre-approved. It's all of those factors need to be taken into consideration when you're buying a house, and especially if you're trying to compete on an offer. You can't have any hiccups. It just makes it a very frustrating situation for the seller and everybody involved. So,
well, then you've got potential lawsuits happening, right? If you agree to buy, you go in cash, and suddenly you can't get the money. Okay, well, that's a huge liability and potential legal action, right? So
and the sellers lost other offers that they might have had in the interim. So that's why it's so important to talk to a mortgage broker like Trina and have all your ducks in a row.
Right. With that, and I think, Gwen, you and I, the last time we spoke, talked about the changes that CMHC had made. And I explained that that's another item that's come up quite a bit recently, is that there are a few banks that go strictly by the CMHC guidelines, which are now a minimum beacon score of 680, which I'm going to tell you, ladies, is actually high nowadays, because a lot of folks don't realize that keeping their lines of credit and credit cards maxed out is significantly decreasing their credit score. So I've had stories where people have called me and said, I went to my bank and they told me they couldn't approve me because my credit score was below 680. Genworth and Canada Guarantee are still following the old guidelines. The other thing that CMHC did too was they decreased affordability ratio percentages as well. And I completely understand why they did it, and it was a good thing. Yeah. And it's to control the economy, like to help the economy not get into caca.
Well, to save us, to save us from ourselves.
They got to look at the big picture, right? Yeah. They're not just looking at, this month and next month. They're looking at this year and next year and the year after. They're the big picture guys.
So for folks that think that they have awesome credit because they pay their bills every month, if your credit score is below 680, call me, because there are other insurers and other lenders that will. It doesn't mean that your credit's bad. It's just that your score is low, and for some lenders, that's what they're basing their guidelines on now.
Yeah, so you don't fit into that unique little box, but there are other options out there, like through mortgage brokers, that you can still get a mortgage. It's just a different path that you're going to have to take.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and you can go online and get your credit score, right? But it's not what you're talking about. It's not the Beacon score.
That's correct.
Everybody thinks, because now the banks are offering that on their websites, that you just hit a link and you can get your credit score. But that's not what, when you're getting qualified or pre-approved, that's not what you're looking at, the Beacon score. People don't understand that, right? They don't know what you're talking about is a different thing.
Exactly.
It's sort of an indication of the direction you're heading. If your credit cards are maxed, well, yeah, you're going to run into problems for sure. But that's why you need to talk to somebody like you and that can help guide them. Okay, maybe now you can't do it, but maybe in 6 months or a year you will, because if you clean up your credit a bit and pay down some of those credit cards. And
I've had a shocking number of people this summer that had no idea that they had problems with their credit reports. I had one young fellow that when I pulled up his credit, it was a different birth date than what I actually had, and his name was spelled differently. So obviously someone had committed some type of fraud against him, and it can take weeks to get that fixed.
Yeah.
So
that's why my husband,
and in 24 hours it's fixed. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, well, that's why my husband puts his initial in the middle when he does anything, because there's so many Rick Lavois out there, some with good credit, some with bad. You realize you gotta look at that every now and then. You gotta look at your report and see what mistakes are on there, and
you can get it for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
This particular fellow actually had 3 credit bureaus.
Oh.
And it happens because he had a very interesting spelling of his last name, and it was very long.
Yeah.
So if he goes and applies for credit and someone keys it in incorrectly, he could have like a Capital One card over here with this spelling of his name, but the date of birth and the SIN match. And he could have a MasterCard over here, or a car loan, or anything like that. So it's always good to check that.
Yes. Yeah. And there is help out there too. There's even credit counselors that you can talk to guide you how to improve your credit overall. It's not, and I think a lot of people I know there's a lot of buyers out there thinking that the bottom's going to fall out of the market and there's going to be a lot of cheap houses because people are going to lose them. The banks are going to do as much as they possibly can to prevent somebody from losing their house. I mean, it's a possibility, but the bank doesn't want to be holding a whole bunch of houses.
Like I said, they don't want to be in the home ownership business.
No.
They want to be in the lending business. So.
Well, I have a feeling that's one of the reasons why CMHC increased their criteria for lending by decreasing affordability ratios and increasing the credit score.
Yeah.
It's to help out, right?
Yeah. Well, and like I say, we'll see what happens this fall and winter, but right now the temperature's hot and the market's hot. And we got our running shoes on.
It's time to sell, so give us a call.
Well, and like I say, we keep consistently every month talking about that the number of listings is down, and that's what's part of the equation is we need some more listings. And I think some people have been hesitant because of COVID, opening their doors but like I always keep saying, realtors, professional realtors, we handle that. We've got a whole protocol that we go through to have a house on the market and to be showing it. We want to protect ourselves and our family as much as we want to protect our clients. So you can sell your house during this. Yeah, absolutely. We want you to. Give us a call.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you, ladies. Great seeing you.
Thank you, Gwen.
Get out there.
Thanks.
Stay
cool.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.